I'm Ava, 33, knee-deep in the world of web design, and married to Mark, a guy who could charm the socks off anyone with his goofy smile. We met back in college, at some dingy bar where the music was too loud, and the drinks were cheap. I was trying to drown my exam stress in a pint of the most watered-down beer you could imagine when Mark sidled up, all confidence and bad pickup lines. "You look like you've lost your last friend, can I apply for the position?" he had said, and despite the cheesiness, I laughed. That laugh sealed our fate. Fast forward through years of cramped apartments, late-night takeouts, and dreams bigger than our paychecks, we tied the knot, ready to start a family. But, as it turned out, dreaming was the easy part. Years went by with no baby in sight. Every negative test felt like a punch in the gut, and the silence in our home grew louder with each passing month. Mark tried to keep things light, always the joker, but I saw the strain behind his eyes. "Hey, we still got each other, right? Me, you, and this invisible baby makes 3. He'd jest, trying to wrap me in a hug as I stared off into space, wondering why something that came so easily to others was out of our reach. One chilly morning, feeling off and a bit queasy, I called in sick. Alone, with Mark off to work, I found myself staring at a pregnancy test in the bathroom. "What the heck?" I muttered to myself, the words echoing off the tiles. The silence of waiting was suffocating, and when those 2 little lines appeared, I couldn't breathe. "No freaking way," I whispered, my heart slamming against my ribs. I was still staring at the test, disbelief and joy warring in my chest, when Mark came home. He found me on the sofa, the test clutched in my hand like some precious talisman. "What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, dropping his keys and coming over. We're pregnant," I managed, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. He froze, his eyes flicking down to the test and then back up to meet mine. "Are you shitting me?" he blurted out, the shock on his face mirroring my own feelings. "No, I'm not," I said, a laugh bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. "I'm not shitting you." The moment stretched out between us, filled with a wild, disbelieving joy. Then, Mark scooped me up, twirling me around like we were in some kind of movie. "I'm gonna be a dad," he yelled, laughing, his usual reserve lost in the moment. The next day, he came home with a small box, wrapped clumsily in shiny paper. "For you," he said, a shy grin on his face. Inside was a pair of earrings, mother of pearl, shimmering softly. They were beautiful, unusual, and very noticeable. "To celebrate our little miracle," he said, his voice thick. I touched the earrings, then reached up to kiss him. "Thank you," I whispered, my eyes filling with tears. Not just for the gift, but for this moment, for us, for everything we had endured to get here. Mark, always the one to break a sentimental moment with humor, winked and said, "Now, don't go saying I never give you anything nice." Those earrings became my talisman, a symbol of our unexpected joy, a reminder of the day everything changed. After the initial shock and joy, reality set in. Pregnancy wasn't the glowing experience I'd been sold by every happy family photo and movie. It was hard, really hard. Morning sickness should have been called all-day sickness. I was a web designer by trade, glued to my screen, but now even the faint glow made me queasy. Mark was as supportive as he could be, but there's only so much understanding a guy can have when he's not the one turning into a human barf machine. "Babe, can you try working from the bed? Maybe it'll help," he suggested one evening, finding me hunched over the trash can in our tiny office. I shot him a look, half irritated, half grateful for his clumsy attempts at problem-solving. "Yeah, 'cause coding while lying down is peak efficiency," I snapped, immediately regretting my sharpness. "Sorry, it's just, this is tough." As the weeks trudged on, my body became a foreign entity. I gained weight, my back ached constantly, and I developed a weird aversion to the smell of coffee, which used to be my morning lifeline. Mark tried to help by switching to tea, but he wasn't happy. "This is like drinking sad water," he complained one morning, staring mournfully at his mug. I'd kill for a cup of sad water that didn't make me want to hurl. I retorted, sipping ginger tea that did nothing for my nausea but was supposed to be good for me. Work became my refuge, the one place I felt some control, even as my body rebelled. My manager, seeing my struggle, offered me the chance to work remotely. "Take care of yourself, Ava. We need you at your best, not at your breaking point," she advised over a video call, her face a pixelated mask of concern. "Thanks, I'll try not to code any bugs into the system along with the baby," I joked, grateful for her understanding. Mark was thrilled when I told him about the remote work arrangement. "That's fantastic. You can barf in the comfort of our home now," he said, wrapping me in a careful hug. "Yeah, the glamour is non-stop," I replied dryly, leaning into his warmth. But as the months wore on, the challenges only grew. Every appointment, every ultrasound, was a mix of terror and excitement. Mark was a rock, holding my hand, making bad jokes to the doctors, and promising over and over that he'd be there, no matter what. But as much as Mark was there for me, I couldn't shake the feeling of isolation. My body was doing something miraculous, sure, but it felt more like an alien takeover. I envied women who breezed through pregnancy, who glowed and thrived while I barely survived. One particularly hard day, after a night of no sleep and too much heartburn, I broke down. "I don't know how I'm supposed to do this, Mark. How do women do this more than once? I feel like I'm falling apart." Mark, ever my rock, pulled me close, stroking my hair back from my tear-streaked face. Hey, we'll get through this. You're the strongest person I know. And remember, at the end of this, we get to meet our little alien overlord. That's got to be worth all the sad water and barf, right?" I couldn't help but laugh through my tears. "Yeah, I guess it is." That was our life now, a series of tough days brightened by moments of humor and love. Despite the difficulties, despite the fear and the pain, we were in it together, waiting for the day our lives would change forever. And in those hard, dark moments, that was enough to keep me going. After the baby came, I thought we'd be living in some kind of bliss. But, let me tell you, it was anything but. Our little bundle of joy? More like a tiny tyrant who refused to sleep. Night after night, it was just me, pacing the floor, trying every trick in the book to get him to settle. "Mark? Useless. I've got work in the morning," he'd grumble from under the pillows, as if I was heading off to a spa day instead of logging into my own mountain of work with a side of zombie-like exhaustion. "Great, 'cause apparently I don't work, right?" I'd snap back, bitterness creeping into my voice. It wasn't like my job just paused because I had a baby. Then, just when I thought we were getting the hang of it, life threw another curveball. I was pregnant again. The shock of it nearly bowled me over. "This can't be happening," I whispered to myself, staring down at the test. 2 kids under 2? How were we going to manage? Mark's reaction? "This is great news." He beamed, clearly not the one who'd have to push another human out of his body or juggle meetings with morning sickness. "Great? Mark, we're barely hanging on as it is," I retorted, my stress levels skyrocketing. "We'll manage." "We always do," he said, but his words felt hollow. Easy for him to say. His parents, Diane and Jack, bless them, swooped in like some kind of cavalry. They'd drive in from out of town, armed with casseroles and an eagerness to help. "You kids need a break," they'd insist, taking over with a competence that left me both grateful and a little resentful. Why couldn't it be this easy for us? When our daughter arrived, all those fears and frustrations seemed to melt away, at least for a little while. Holding her, everything just fit. Like she was the piece of our family puzzle we didn't know was missing. "Hello, beautiful," I whispered, tears of joy replacing those of exhaustion. But the reality was, we were in over our heads. Mark was over the moon about our daughter, sure, but his solution to our chaos was to dive even deeper into work. "We need the money," he'd say, a defense that was getting old. "More than we need you?" I'd counter, watching the gap between us grow wider with every late night and missed dinner. His parents became our lifeline, filling in the gaps, supporting us when we were too stubborn to admit we needed it. It was a weird mix of gratitude and guilt, relying on them so much. In those early days, staring down at my daughter's face, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could make this work. But as the sleepless nights stacked up and Mark's presence became more and more like a guest appearance, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were drifting further apart. "Look at her, Mark. She's perfect," I'd say during one of his rare moments at home, hoping to bridge the gap between us. "Yeah, she is," he'd agree, but his eyes were always on the clock, his mind elsewhere. After our second kid came into the picture, things didn't magically get easier like I hoped. Between the sleepless nights and trying to keep up with work, I noticed the pounds piling on. It wasn't just the baby weight anymore, it was stress, lack of sleep, and grabbing whatever I could eat during a rare moment of peace. Mark? He seemed more distant than ever. Where we used to crash on the couch together, exhausted but together, now there was just this cold space. I told myself it was just a phase, that we'd get back on track soon. But deep down, I was worried. His work became his excuse for everything. Late nights, weekends, even business trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. Meanwhile, I was killing it at work, somehow managing to juggle deadlines and diapers. The kids, bless them, were turning out to be my little motivators. Seeing them thrive, especially after I managed to get them into a decent private kindergarten, gave me a weird sense of accomplishment. But Mark and I? We were like ships passing in the night. And when he finally did drop his bombshell, it hurt like hell. "You've let yourself go," he said one night, out of the blue. No lead-up, no gentleness, just those words, cutting deep. I was stunned. "Excuse me?" He shrugged, as if he'd just commented on the weather. "You're not. I'm just not attracted to you anymore." It felt like a punch to the gut. Here I was, trying to hold everything together, and this was what I got. Tears stung my eyes, but I was too proud to let them fall in front of him. "So, what? You're just giving up on us?" He didn't even have the decency to look conflicted. "I don't know, Ava. It's just how I feel." That night, I cried myself to sleep, not sure how we'd gotten to this point. But by morning, I was done feeling sorry for myself. I decided to take control, for me and for our kids. I started eating better, joined a gym, and threw myself into my workouts with a vengeance. Mark's reaction? If you could call it that, was a big fat nothing. He noticed, sure, but he didn't care. Not really. He was too caught up in his own world, treating the kids like they were more of a burden than a blessing. "We should have thought this through," he'd say, casting a cold eye over the chaos of toys and laughter. I bit back the sharper retorts that came to mind. Arguing wouldn't change how he felt, but I couldn't help but wonder when he'd become this person, so distant from the man I'd married. Despite it all, I pressed on. The gym became my sanctuary, a place where I could shed the weight and the worries. Slowly, I started to see progress, feeling stronger, more like myself than I had in years. But as I changed, Mark stayed the same. Indifferent. Distant. It was like we were living separate lives under the same roof. I missed him, or at least, I missed the idea of him, of us. Our wedding anniversary was rolling around, a day that used to mean champagne toasts and stolen kisses. This year, though, it felt more like a reminder of everything that had gone sideways between Mark and me. But I'm a fighter, always have been. So, I cooked up a plan to maybe, just maybe, salvage whatever was left of us. I called Mark during one of his rare breaks at work. "Hey, our anniversary's coming up. Thought maybe we could do something special," I ventured, heart hammering. There was a pause, long enough for me to regret bringing it up. "Sure, Ava. What did you have in mind?" His voice was flat, distracted. I pressed on, nerves be damned. "How about a weekend getaway? Just us, no kids, no distractions." "Sounds expensive," was his immediate response, and I could almost hear his eyebrows raising in skepticism. I bit back a sigh. I found a deal. It'll be nice, Mark. Like old times. He was silent for a moment. All right, book it. But it's your show, Ava. I'm swamped here. Not exactly the enthusiastic partner I was hoping for, but I'd take it. I went all in, booking a cozy hotel room and arranging for his parents to watch the kids. I needed, this weekend to be a turning point for us. The day before our trip, I laid out the dress I'd bought especially for the occasion. I tried to find the mother-of-pearl earrings that Mark gave me, but they were missing somewhere. It's okay, I thought, because everything else is ready. I waited for Mark at the hotel, anticipation turning to anxiety as the hours ticked by. My phone was silent, his side of the bed untouched. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I called him, my voice shaking. Mark, where are you? You're late. Look, Ava. I'm not coming, he said, and just like that, my fragile hope shattered. What do you mean you're not coming? It's our anniversary, Mark. I was on my feet now, pacing the room. He sighed, a sound that felt like a slap. I can't do this, Ava. Pretend everything's okay. I'm sorry. The world spun. So that's it? You're giving up on us? My voice broke, the hurt too raw, too deep. I don't know what else to do, he admitted, and the finality in his voice was a blow I wasn't prepared for. I hung up, numb. The night stretched on, endless and empty. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every second was a reminder of the gaping chasm between us, of the love we'd lost somewhere along the way. The next morning, I made a decision. If Mark had given up, fine. But I wouldn't let this break me. I spent the day at the hotel spa, walked along the beach, and dined alone, surrounded by couples. It was both liberating and profoundly sad. Returning home, I braced myself to face Mark, to confront the ruins of our marriage. But the house was quiet, too quiet. His parents greeted me with confusion and concern. Where's Mark? They asked, echoing the hollow ache in my heart. I didn't have an answer. The truth was, I didn't know where my husband was, physically or emotionally. Our anniversary, once a celebration of us, had turned into a stark, painful milestone marking the end of us. In that moment, I knew things couldn't go on like this. The distance, the silence, the pain, it was too much. I needed more, deserved more. It was time for a change, time to face the future, whatever it might hold, head on. But first, I needed to find those earrings, the last link to a time when love, not loneliness, filled our home. They were gone, just like the man who'd given them to me. And with that realization, the last piece of my broken heart finally gave way. The next few days were a blur of routine, taking care of the kids, working, and the constant, nagging thought of Mark's absence. It wasn't until I was out in the yard with the kids that the piece of the puzzle I wasn't even aware was missing fell right into my lap, or, more accurately, walked right up to my fence. It was our neighbor, Jenny, young and always friendly, but I hadn't really spoken to her since the kids came. Today, she was all smiles, waving at the kids. That's when I saw them, the earrings. My earrings. The mother-of-pearl ones Mark had given me, shimmering in the sunlight as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Nice earrings, I said, trying to keep my voice steady but feeling the sting of betrayal. Jenny touched one ear self-consciously. Oh, these? They were a gift from someone special. She stumbled over her words, her face flushing. Someone special, huh? I couldn't hide my skepticism. They look a lot like a pair I used to love. Went missing recently. The conversation was awkward, full of half-truths and dodged looks. It was clear there was something she wasn't saying. Later that evening, I confronted Mark. We need to talk, I started, my voice firm despite the turmoil inside. What's up? He tried to sound casual, but I could see the tension in his posture. It's over, Mark. I'm filing for divorce, I said without preamble, watching his reaction closely. He blinked, taken aback. What? Why? Don't play dumb. I know about Jenny. The earrings, Mark. And everything else. I pressed on, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak. For a moment, he looked genuinely shocked. But then, his expression shifted to something darker. He laughed, a harsh, angry sound. So, you found out? Yes, I've been seeing Jenny. Gave her those earrings, because I wanted to. I don't care about us anymore, Ava. His words were like a knife. But I was prepared. I want you out, Mark. And I expect financial compensation for your adventures. He exploded at that. Compensation? You won't get a dime from me. That's when I played my final card. Actually, I recorded our conversation just now. Your confession. It'll be more than enough for court. Mark's anger turned to disbelief, then fear. You can't do that. I just did, I said, the finality in my voice marking the end of our marriage and the beginning of my fight for justice. After I decided to file for divorce, things moved quickly. Armed with the evidence of Mark's infidelity, I felt a grim satisfaction knowing I had the upper hand. The court didn't hesitate. They saw right through Mark's excuses and awarded me financial compensation and alimony for the kids. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it felt significant. Mark's parents, surprisingly, came out firmly on my side. It was a bitter pill for Mark, realizing he'd lost not just his marriage, but the support of his family too. One afternoon, while the kids played in the yard, Mark's mom, Diane, and I sat down for a rare moment of quiet. We're so sorry, dear, she began, her voice thick with emotion. We never raised him to be this way. I nodded, not sure what to say. The betrayal still stung, but seeing them stand by me meant more than I could express. I appreciate you both. The kids love having you around. Diane reached over and squeezed my hand. They're our grandkids. We'd do anything for them. And for you. You're more of a daughter to us now than ever. Life after the divorce wasn't easy, but it was mine. The house felt emptier, yet somehow fuller too. Full of possibility, of new beginnings. The kids adapted, resilient as ever, finding joy in the simplest moments. And me? I threw myself into work and motherhood, determined to build a bright future for us. One day, I was at the park with the kids, watching them play, their laughter a balm to my soul, when Diane joined me on the bench. You're doing an amazing job, Ava, she said, her tone sincere. Thanks, Diane. It means a lot, coming from you. We miss you guys when you're not around, I replied, grateful for her and her husband's unwavering support. We wouldn't be anywhere else. Those kids, and you, are our family, no matter what Mark has done, she stated firmly. The conversation shifted to work, to the kids' latest antics, to the future. It was comforting, this new normal we'd established. A testament to the fact that family isn't always defined by blood, but by the bonds you build. As the months passed, I found strength I didn't know I had. The gym became a regular escape, not just for my physical health, but for my mental well-being too. My body grew stronger, and with it, my confidence. Then, one unexpected afternoon, I ran into Mark at a local cafe. The man sitting across from me was a stranger in many ways, worn down by his choices. Ava, you look great, he said, almost in awe. I nodded, polite but distant. Thanks, Mark. How have you been? Struggling, he admitted. Listen, I've been thinking, maybe we could start over? I've changed, Ava. The words hung in the air, a tempting offer to rewind time. But looking at him, I realized I didn't want to go back. I had moved forward, built a life that was whole and happy without him. Mark, I wish you well, I really do. But that part of my life is over. The kids and we're doing great. It's best we keep moving in our own directions, I said, my voice steady. He nodded, disappointment etched on his face. I understand. I miss the family, you know? I know, but we're doing just fine. Take care of yourself, Mark, I replied, standing to leave. Walking away, I felt a surge of empowerment. The encounter, brief as it was, reinforced how far I'd come. I was no longer the woman who waited for her husband to come home. I was Ava, strong, independent, and thriving.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.